Warning: the following video contains explicit language, which may be offensive to some viewers or inappropriate for children. The content within this video is intended for mature audiences only.
Are you ready?
Hey everybody, it's Jeff. As you can see, snow again today. Yeah, it's not coming down terribly hard, but it's putting snow back on the ground. Even though yesterday was such a beautiful day, now today is exactly the opposite. And I've been hearing sirens, ambulances and stuff like that, so I guess there's people getting into accidents on the road because the snow is wet. I went out there to kind of clear the walkway to the steps a little bit, and yeah, it's it'll melt quick whenever it quits snowing there, but it's just very slippery out there, and I really don't know if they're even really plowing, because they probably figure that it's not going to last anyway. So, but you know, geez, I guess that friggin' groundhog there, what do they call it? Phil, whatever the hell, I can't say his name, but when he said the winter was going to be longer, he wasn't shitting the frickin' thing, you know, guys. So, yeah, so that's what's going on there. Oh, so I got a video. Well, actually, I have two videos, but I have one from Ben Mysalis, okay, and he's talking about how Canada, they're boycotting coming into the United States, and in this video, he's going to be focusing on Old Orchard Beach, Maine, and there was a news from CNN, I guess, was down there, and they were interviewing some people in Old Orchard Beach, the businesses down there, people that run the hotels and stuff. They're saying that they're getting cancellations like you wouldn't believe. About 90% of their customers are from Canada. I mean, from Canada are canceling out. So they're going to have a hell of a time this year making money enough to pay their bills. So let's go to that video there, and then we'll discuss that on the other side.
Is making minced meat of Donald Trump, and because of the boycott by Canada, of course, it's buy Canadian minced meat. Just take a look at some of these headlines right here. The Buy Canadian movement starts to take a sizable bite out of U.S. business. This from the Globe and Mail. It talks about how a surge in patriotism among Canadian shoppers fueled by trade tensions with the United States. Hey, Globe and Mail, you mean Donald Trump essentially declaring war on Canada? It's already leaving a sizable mark on American business. Early data from a variety of industries suggest U.S. tour operators are reporting booking declines of as much as 85%, while American distilleries are losing major deals. Canada is boycotting traveling to the U.S. Canada is boycotting American products. And also, the Canadian government is also now looking elsewhere when it comes to their military weapons. I previously reported how Canada cut a deal with Australia for incredible satellite technology that's going to be placed in kind of the northern Arctic region in Canada. This was military equipment that Australia was first going to send to the U.S., but now its first big customer is now Canada. Also, Canada looking elsewhere when it comes to F-35 jets. Canada would get these jets, of course, from the United States. Now Canada's looking to Europe, and Europe's looking to Europe and elsewhere, and Australia's looking to Europe. People don't want to buy anything from America. Governments don't want to buy. I mean, look what Donald Trump said on Friday from the Oval Office when he announced that he would be moving away from F-35s, and he said he's going to be making F-47s, and he says that he's going to downgrade the quality of military equipment given to other countries. I think insinuating Canada and European countries and Australia. He goes, because they may not be allies anymore, so America's going to give them worse equipment. Play this clip.
Buy them also, and certain allies will be selling them, perhaps toned down versions. We like to tone them down about 10%, which probably makes sense because someday maybe they're not our allies, right? But I would like to ask Secretary...
Horrific stuff, but not surprising when it comes to Donald Trump. Let's also take a look at this article from CNBC. See you in 4 years. Canada flexes economic muscle as tariff negotiations continue. Look, we say tariff negotiations. Let's be clear here what's going on. Canada wants to exist peacefully with its once ally, the United States. Donald Trump, on the other hand, wakes up every day and talks about conquering Canada and how he wants it to be the 51st state. That's the dynamic. It's not just tensions. It is Donald Trump wanting to seize the land the way Putin does. I want to show you this story right here. This was on CNN. An owner of a popular inn in Old Orchard Beach, Maine, told CNN that easily 90% of their business has disappeared as Canadian tourists cancel their vacations. Let me show you this from CNN. It's a great segment, actually. Play this clip.
This has been a family business for 50 years. You got to take into the fact how the Canadians perceive this, and they are incredibly pissed off.
We met Sterling Morse in Old Orchard Beach, Maine. He owns the Point of View Inn, which is only about 150 miles from the Canadian border.
We have been here.
He says the majority of his regular customers are French Canadians.
Very traditional people, families that take the same room, the same dates every year.
Not this year. Sterling says most of his Canadian customers have canceled, fed up with President Donald Trump's antagonistic rhetoric toward Canada. There's the threat of tariffs, too, and lately Trump has suggested redrawing the border between the two countries.
It's affecting at least 90% of my business.
Are you saying you've had 90% of your business canceled this year?
Easily.
Point of View Inn.
During our visit, yet another Canadian called to cancel.
Listen, monsieur, you don't need to explain anymore.
This is every registration card from last year. This is the Canadian. That's my American. This just went away.
That's all you got now. That doesn't pay the bills.
Does not.
Best of my ability.
For Sterling Morse, it all snowballed shortly after Donald Trump's inauguration.
All of a sudden an email pops up. It's almost like, your phone, ding, ding, slow ding. And people that have been here for 35, 40 years, you recognize that number. And it's like, I know why they're calling. And the anger is, in my eyes, incredibly justified.
Here in Old Orchard Beach, roughly 40% of the tourists come from Canada, according to the Chamber of Commerce. The Chamber's executive director told us that those tourists make up about 30 to 40% of the revenue for many of the businesses here.
I think we're still kind of seeing how many different industries this impacts. It doesn't just impact tourism, of course.
Over at the Alouette Beach Resort, owner Fred Kennedy hasn't seen a cancellation yet, but he's heard an earful from his Canadian customers. What are they telling you?
Well, their feelings are basically hurt. They don't like to be referred to as the 51st state, and they feel that they just want to express themselves and in sort of a nationalistic way.
Wow. Now, you see that segment right there. Remember, was it 2 months ago or so? Maybe it was early late January, early February, where I had said, remember, like the American Tourism Bureau was saying, oh, they expect it to be the boycott to be 10% of Canadians. And they said that would cause about $2 billion in damages and cause about 100,000 people potentially to lose their jobs. Remember what we were saying here in the Midas Touch Network? I said, I'm not sure you're talking to Canadians, because we are. At the Midas Touch Network, we're talking to the Maple Mighty, the Maple Midas here at the Midas Touch Network. And I said the number's going to be closer to 85, 100%. The Canadians aren't coming to the United States. They're not buying products from a country run by a regime that wants to conquer it. Are you kidding me? So those numbers don't surprise me at all. And by the way, we stand in solidarity with our Canadian supporters here, and all Canadians, frankly, at the Midas Touch Network. We know that you got to defend yourself. This headline from the New York Times also is another reason why Canadians and others are not coming to the United States. As Trump broadens crackdown, focus expands to legal immigrants and tourists. U.S. border officials are using more aggressive tactics at ports of entry as the administration scrutinizes green card and visa holders who have expressed opposition to its policies. So Canadian visitors, European visitors, Australian, anywhere, show up. Now they get interrogated, and they could end up in ICE detention centers, or even worse, El Salvador concentration camps. Donald Trump asserting war powers under the Alien Enemies Act of 1798, essentially authoritarian powers that have only been invoked in the War of 1812, World War I, and World War II. Trump just says he divines. You are a Venezuelan terrorist, he says. And then there's no evidence, no due process. You get shipped to a concentration camp in El Salvador where you're never heard from again. Trump sent about 300 people to El Salvador in the past week or so. And then at a federal court hearing where the DOJ lawyer's been interrogated or asked questions by the judge, cross-examined rather, about what's going on here, we're learning that women were sent to El Salvador, and those concentration camps in El Salvador only hold men. We're learning people like a soccer coach who was a professional soccer player in Venezuela, not a gang member, according to this person's lawyer, who had a Real Madrid, a football club tattoo, was sent to the concentration camps. Someone who was here lawfully as a lawful asylum seeker, trying to get away from the Maduro regime, a political exile. This is how all the Venezuelans who supported Donald Trump, this is what your expectations are. By the way, Finland and Denmark issued travel warnings. Germany issued travel warnings. The UK are issuing travel warnings. Horrific stuff. I'll share this clip with you right here from Republican Senator Lisa Murkowski. Here she is in Alaska. And here she's an Alaska senator. She's going, I'm befuddled. I'm confused. How have we got to a place where we support Russia now and we attack Canada? How is that happening? Alaska Senator Lisa Murkowski.
Quite honestly, I've been stunned by a turn of events that would appear that we might abandon Ukraine and collapse longstanding alliances from NATO to NORAD. And then we've got two close neighbors here in Alaska. We got Russia over here. We've got Canada over here. How we came to a place where we're fighting now with Canada and we're making nice with Russia, it's beyond me. And as long as we've got to send up fighter jets to chase off Russian bear bombers from our addies, I'm not going to trust Putin here, and I'm not going to be quiet about it. I'm going to stand up and say so. Thank you.
Hey, Lisa, it's because of people like you. It's because of spineless Republicans or whatever political party you are, the Republican, doing, I'm so concerned. I'm so worried. You enable this. You let this take place. And by this, Look at what Donald Trump was saying on Friday again, like referring to the border with Canada as an artificial line. Play this clip.
No, there might be, but it would, you know, you have that artificial line that goes, that straight artificial, that looked like it was drawn by a ruler. Somebody with a, I don't mean a ruler like a king, I mean like a ruler, this way. And it's just an artificial line that was drawn in the sand or in the ice. And you know, and can I tell you, Peter, just, you add that to this country, what a beautiful landmass, the most beautiful landmass anywhere in the world. And it was just cut off for whatever reason. It would be great.
He does this every day. Every day Trump talks about conquering Canada. These are words of war. This isn't funny. He's declaring war on Canada. Here he is again saying, yeah, when I say they should be a state, I really mean I want to take over Canada. Here, play this clip.
Nobody knows that. Nobody knows that. They have up to 400%. They have a couple of tariffs at 400%. Nobody knows that. Nobody talks about that. And remember, with Canada, we don't need their cars. We don't need their lumber. We don't need their energy. We don't need anything from Canada. And yet it costs us $200 billion a year in subsidy to keep Canada afloat. So when I say they should be a state, I mean that. I really mean that. Because we can't be expected to carry a country that is right next to us on our border. It would be a great state. It would be a cherished state.
I'm a big fan, by the way, of Canada's foreign minister. Think she's incredible. Here she is on CNN. Let's play it.
Well, listen, we've already put $60 billion worth of counter tariffs on American goods. These tariffs, Pam, are a tax on hardworking Americans. These tariffs are going to cost more to Americans at the pump and also when they go do their groceries. So we're launching an ad campaign today in 12 different states. Canadians are sending a message that there's no winners in a trade war. There will be job losses on both sides of the border, and particularly in the U.S. And Canada is the biggest customer of the U.S. We buy more American goods from the U.S. than China, Japan, France, and the U.K. So imagine what the Trump administration right now is doing to its biggest customer that is supporting so many American jobs. So that's why we want to make sure that Americans know.
Isn't it such a great contrast between her and Donald Trump? Here she is again. Let's play it.
What we said is that we would be ready to put $150 billion worth of tariffs against the tariffs imposed by the White House because of a pause on one of the executive order coming out of the White House. We decided to pause the rest of the tariffs, the $90 billion worth of tariffs that are still under consultation here, just to show goodwill. I've had some conversations with Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State. I've been in contact also with key Republican senators, including Lindsey Graham. My colleagues within cabinet have been in contact also with Howard Lutnick and Mr. Bessent. And so our job is to make sure that while we put pressure, at the same time, we're really willing to discuss. But at the end of the day, we very know, Pam, that people watching us right now in the States are the only ones that can really influence what's going on in the White House, because ultimately they're the first victims of these taxes that are imposed by their federal government against them.
And by the way, the polls in Canada for the upcoming snap election that's expected have totally flipped. The Conservative Party, which was leading in the polls before, led by Pierre Poilievre, who made a lot of comments very sympathetic to MAGA and Trump before, they're crashing. And now the Liberal Party, led by the current Prime Minister Mark Carney, who I think is incredible, now has a 64% chance of having a majority, not even a plurality, a majority in being able to form a government. An incredible turn of events. Our friend here at the Midas Touch Network, Charlie Angus, was asked about how Pierre Poilievre, the leader of the Canadian Conservative Party, is now trying to pretend like Trump hates the Conservative Party and hates Poilievre because Poilievre feels like he could only win if he goes Trump hates him, because Canada hates Trump so much that the way you have to appeal now is to say that Trump hates you. But people know how phony Pierre Poilievre is. Poilievre was doing the whole Elon Musk Doge circuit, the right-wing podcast talking about woke and all of this stuff. Here's what Angus has to say about it. He goes, oh, Poilievre, oh, Pierre, watch this.
What do you think of Donald Trump's comments about Pierre Poilievre? Poilievre certainly sees his comments as an endorsement of Carney.
Oh, poor Pierre. Pierre Poilievre has been endorsed by every MAGA right-wing voice that supports Donald Trump. But what Donald Trump is realizing is getting an endorsement from Donald Trump is political death in Canada. So now he's trying to say he doesn't support Pierre Poilievre. Nobody's buying that. Pierre Poilievre is MAGA. Pierre Poilievre is supporting the same kind of extremist policies that Donald Trump is. And Donald Trump is trying to do Pierre a favor by saying, oh, actually, I don't like Pierre Poilievre. Nobody's buying it.
So good. So good. Great work, Canada. Hit subscribe. Let's get to 5 million subscribers. Thanks.
Can't say that I'm really surprised. I was reading weeks back about how the Canadians were mad and they were going to cancel their vacations into the state. Of course, Maine isn't the only state that they come to, but we do get a lot of Canadians coming down shopping and basically heading down towards that beach down there, which is really the only decent beach in Maine. Because if you lived in Maine, you know that most of the shoreline in Maine has these great big rocks. So it's not like beach sand that most people would imagine a beach to be. It's a lot of the Maine coastline is just covered in big boulders and rocks and stuff like that, which in itself is kind of interesting. I guess you could say some people like the rocks, but if you're trying to lay out, in the sunlight and stuff, it's a little difficult because there's no real beach sand until you get down into southern Maine where you're near Portland and stuff like that, and then you get the more traditional beaches down that way. But where I live and stuff, and when you go towards the coast past Ellsworth, towards Bar Harbor, which is a little further north of Old Orchard Beach, it's mostly rocks, very little area to actually see beach sand. And that's where the Canadians like to go. Of course, they do like to go to Bar Harbor because they have lobsters, and then there's Mount Katahdin there or whatever, and there's, things to see. So in the summer, it's really nice in Maine, especially the fall. I think the fall time in Maine is my favorite because, for one thing, it ain't terribly hot. And when the leaves start to change color, it looks pretty, in the woods and stuff. So the businesses in Maine these days heavily rely on tourism and stuff like that. The shit that Trump is doing is impacting the state in a bad way. Now, of course, Maine's not the only state that borders Canada. So, his tariffs are also going to affect other states as well that sit along that border. But since Maine is always struggling because, we don't have much of an industry for anything anymore because over time, all the paper mills have gone. Any factories we had, they're gone, closed up. Even the fishing industry up here ain't what it used to be. People, I guess Boston basically has all that now. But when we talk about, these tourist businesses in Maine down along the coast that, get a lot of money from Canadians when they come down, and now they're looking at almost 100% cancellation. Jesus Christ. That it's going to make what the pandemic look like, seem like a picnic because, they bitched during that when people weren't getting around doing anything during that. But I don't think we ever heard anybody talking about, absolute nothing showing up, you know, at their in their areas, you know, stuff. So this is going to feel a lot like, you know, the pandemic years for Old Orchard Beach, where nobody was willing to go anywhere because of the fear of getting sick. You know, it's not good. It's not good. You know, and you know, I feel bad for the businesses. I'm not angry at the Canadians for this. Okay, I mean, look, they're doing no different than what the United States would do if, say, Canada had a Donald Trump as a president in their country and was saying the same things about the United States. You know, people would say, screw Canada, we're not going up there no more, we're not buying their stuff, yada, yada, you know, all the same things, okay? We would do the same thing, okay? And we wouldn't do it out of malice, okay? We would do it to send a message to their government, stop the bullshit. That's what Canada is doing to the United States. It's not personal to say, like, Joe and Jane America out there. They're trying to get a message to our government. Stop the bullshit. Okay, leave us alone. You know, stop calling Canada the 51st state. Stop putting tariffs on every damn thing, okay? You know, stop meddling with our politics. I don't think that's too much to ask, honestly. You know, if Trump was acting like an adult instead of a petulant child, he'd understand where they're coming from, okay? Because he doesn't like to be insulted and targeted and all that stuff. For the 4 years while Biden was president, he was under the gun all the fucking time, okay? He didn't like that. So now he's sitting here doing this to other people, other countries. You know, he's taking his anger out everywhere. And it doesn't make any sense. Canada did nothing to him. But he's sitting here acting like, oh, we need to march into that fucking country and take it over, okay? You know, how that man thinks on any given day is a mystery. Really, it is. Every day he does something. Well, not just one thing. I mean, he does like 5 or 6 different things in a day. And every one of those things sounds controversial. Okay, I wake up every morning now, check the news, and I see headlines. Trump planning to do this, Trump planning to do that. You know, it's like, this guy doesn't quit. I mean, does this man ever sleep? Probably not. You know, it's either that or he's got, you know, a clone of himself somewhere taking over when one of them's sleeping. You know, but this guy is working around the fucking clock, sticking it to this country. I just don't get it. I don't fucking understand it. You know, it's just, you know, if he felt like this so much, you know, why is it in his first term he didn't try to do any of this stuff? Okay, all these things. Did he know then that it wouldn't be received right? I don't know. But, you know, it seems like, you know, he's trying to make up for a lot of things that he didn't get a chance to do right now. By hitting the ground running with an agenda that's not even his, really. I mean, if you think about it, it wasn't the Project 2025 thing was just something that was handed to him and told by the Heritage Foundation, this is what we want. And so he's been, you know, helping them with that, I guess, because I'm sure they gave him a shitload of money for his campaign, which now they're calling in that chip, you know. So yeah, he's doing these things, and whether or not he really believes in a lot of the things that he says is really up for debate. Because look, you know, when you look at his campaigning and the things that he said, half of what he's doing now was never brought up during that campaign. Okay, think about that. I mean, yeah, he did talk about immigration and stuff like that, but I mean, does anybody remember him saying anything about destroying the, you know, Department of Education or cutting all these federal workers and stuff? I mean, I don't recall him saying that at all. Okay, I mean, I know he said, oh, it's corrupt, Biden's corrupt. I mean, he was sort of targeting Biden instead of the government as a whole. He was just putting it all on Biden's lap, you know. But he never would say anything specific. Okay, that you had to find in that Project 2025 manifesto that they put out. But then he would deny, oh, I don't know anything about that. You know, you know, he was trying to be stupid. Okay. But now that he's in office and now that he's doing all these things, people who voted for him that didn't bother to read that manifesto are all like, shitting bricks because they didn't know he was going to do this stuff. And it's like, well, you should have read what I was telling you to read, because it was laid out right there what the Heritage Foundation expected Trump to do. Okay? So, yeah, that's, like I said, that it's bad news for Maine, and Maine has a very high, we pay a lot of taxes in this state, a lot. I mean, we rub shoulders with California, believe it or not, and there's only a little over 1 million people in this state. Okay, we don't have no Los Angeles or San Diego or San Francisco in the state of Maine. So I often wonder, how the hell do we justify all the taxes we pay? I don't know, but we pay a lot. We pay a lot. That's why it's not a business-friendly state. A lot of businesses won't come into the state and open up because, Jesus Christ, you're going to tax us to death before we get the doors open. That's what we hear all the time. That's why the paper mills, by and large, one of the reasons why they left this state was because, hey, we can do better in upstate New York than we can in the state of Maine because their taxes are cheaper, or we can just bring in the lumber from Canada and, we can just circumvent Maine. We don't need them. It's like that. Taxes are too high in the state, and it's been something that many governors have come and went and never really addressed. So I don't know what the hell the problem is with that. So anyway, I want to go and do a commercial break so we can come back and do the second part, because it's really important, and I have a special reply from a friend of mine to what the next video will be, and I'm going to play that reply instead of me talking, because I think he nails every point a lot better than I would if I was to just discuss this off the fly like I usually do. So let's go to the commercial break. We'll come back.
I'm Alex Curtis. I'm a lobsterman in Maine, and this is me.
I'm Roxy Sugar, and this is me.
I'm Eric Hopkins. I'm an artist, and this is me.
This is me.
Me.
This is me.
This is me.
At the end of the journey, the main thing is you, original.
can't get hard, not even with the blue pills. Will the salt trick work for me? All right, pay attention. If you're over 35 and not as firm as you should be, or if you're popping the champagne a little too early, I highly recommend the salt trick. In just 20 seconds, you can prepare this drink, and your anaconda will stand tall for hours, almost immediately. This homemade salt tonic has been used for years by Brahmin bull breeders in India to help them stay firm and mate with up to 20 females at once. But a few years ago, this trick fell into the hands of the adult film industry, and since then, this little secret has been used by adult actors instead of the little blue pill. That's because it works in just minutes, flushing out flaccid toxins from your body that make your buddy shrink and fail when it matters most. It may sound crazy, but this drink is 6 times more powerful than any pill from the pharmacy, and because it's natural, it has no side effects. And if you haven't heard about it yet, it's the company behind the little blue pill, starting with P, that censors anyone who talks about this cheap, homemade solution. That way, they continue raking in billions every year from the suffering of millions of men just like you. But I'm putting an end to that right now. I'm releasing the short video that shows how to prepare and use the salt trick. Back then, this video was sold for $47, or they would have taken it down immediately. But so you can start the year off right. I'm leaving this video free for the next 3 hours. In the video, it shows step by step how to prepare this 20-second trick today and leave your wife with limp legs tonight. Just click the button that's appearing somewhere in this video to watch. If a page opens, it means the video is still available, and this might be your only chance to toss the little blue pill in the trash and learn how to make this homemade, safe recipe that's 6 times more powerful than the pharmacy pill. But I should warn you, this video contains some pretty hot scenes, and it also shows an African green tonic used by tribes in North Africa to grow their tool to the point of outgrowing all their underwear. Do not use if you're already too big or satisfied with your size. And also how to eliminate the flaccid toxins that are sabotaging your hardness and shrinking your little guy like a turtle. Watch with headphones on. As I mentioned, the video is uncensored and shows exactly how this trick works to make your buddy rock hard. So click the link below and watch while it's still available.
Some people have a deep, abiding respect for the natural beauty that was once this country. And some people don't. People start pollution. People can stop it. Write for Pollution Booklet, Box 1771, Radio City Station, New York.
Be a part of the entertainment value of a lifetime.
I loved it.
It was the best performance I've seen in a lifetime.
I loved the show. I liked it very much. He's a very entertaining man. It's well worth the money.
Now appearing in Charlottetown, coming to Halifax November 6th to the 18th, and St. John November 20th through the 26th.
Welcome back, everybody. All right. Now, this second video here is something that happened in Maine, okay, in Waldo County. Apparently, a resident of Maine was essentially kidnapped by ICE. Well, let's just go to the video here, because there's a lot to it than that, and then we'll go to the reply after. So let's go to that video right now.
In metaphor, this isn't that. A local father and husband who lived. One of my neighbors was kidnapped yesterday. Sometimes I speak in metaphor. This isn't that. A local father and husband who lives very close to me was stolen from his family and our community. If it's too much to listen to the rest of this, I understand. Just know this is also a fundraising request for his family. Link in description. His wife of 20 years, who's never spent a day away from him, is sobbing as she makes food and tends their children, wakes up alone, makes coffee without him. I know because as I'm writing this, I'm sitting in her kitchen listening to her. This man was here completely legally, specifically under temporary protected status. It happened like this. His nephew was pulled over for driving 8 miles an hour over the speed limit in a 55 zone, which is to say he was pulled over for driving while brown in Maine. He was on a valid out-of-state license and didn't know that he had to transfer his license within 30 days, which was over. If he'd been white, he wouldn't have been pulled over for doing 63 in a 55, and they would have just told him to go on his way and update his license when he got a chance, but he's Latino. So they gave him a $450 ticket and told him he had to find someone else to drive the car home. He called his uncle, who happily came out, displayed his legal Maine license to the cops. Purely because he speaks Spanish. The cops demanded his papers. They took pictures of everyone on their personal phones, informed dispatch, and dispatch called Border Patrol, who came and kidnapped both the uncle and the guy who was driving's wife. They released the guy who was driving's wife alone at 1 a.m. in the middle of the woods, 2.5 hours north of her home and family. This is a beautiful young woman in her early 20s who speaks no English, thrown into the north woods alone at night with no idea where she is. They kept the uncle. ICE refused to tell anyone where he was, denied he was in custody for hours, and his son was calling repeatedly and asking, and they said, nope, nobody here. Finally, he was able to call his family, tell him he'd been in custody all along. Now, his family is terrified to go outside and terrified to be at home. This is a legal resident of the U.S. here with proper documentation, kidnapped by a secret police force and taken to an undisclosed location. His family is left without their beloved husband, father, and uncle, and without their primary breadwinner. I wish you could see his wife sobbing and screaming, talking about how in 20 years they've never spent a day apart, how she can't eat because of how horrifying the not knowing is, not knowing where he is, what's being done to him, what their family will do if he's kept in some black site forever, deported to a labor camp in some country he's never been to, how she's terrified to speak about it at all publicly because she fears blowback against her children and family. This is happening to my neighbors in a town of 1,200 people in rural Maine, and most of my neighbors have no idea because the family is too terrified to talk about it. This is happening to your neighbors. People are being disappeared. Families of legal immigrants are being torn apart as we speak. The level of grief and anger that I'm navigating is pretty high. I feel physically sick to my stomach with it. I feel an itch towards action, increasing every day like a constant physical pull. I work hard to balance that with the knowledge that my programming as a white guy makes me one of the worst people to decide tactics and strategies. I have the most internalized glorification of violence and heroics, and I'm at the least risk of suffering blowback. So I follow the leadership of impacted communities as best as I can, and I feel physically ill. One thing I can do is use my platform to try and support my literal neighbors who are now in a horrifying situation. Every part of this is going to cost them financially in ways that are hard to describe. They may never see their husband and father and uncle again. They may have to flee. They're absolutely in for a legal battle which will cost thousands and thousands of dollars in a system that is completely stacked against them. And they still need to make rent and eat in this economy, now without their primary breadwinner, under escalating threat of being kidnapped themselves. So I'm asking you to consider your position relative to theirs right now and chip in what you can to the fundraiser below. Imagine being that mother, waking up tomorrow with your 2 children and your husband gone, maybe forever. It took them days to decide it was worth it, the risk, for me to make this video, and I hope you can make that risk worth it for them. Every penny put toward this will go straight to a family who desperately needs it, 5 miles down the road from me. And if you don't know anyone who's been kidnapped in your community, then you're not close enough. Especially if you look like me, I need you to get involved. Learn Spanish. Get connected to rapid response groups in your area. Take active bystander trainings. Learn legal rights and advocacy. People need help. Sometimes it'll be big and dramatic, but mostly it'll be small and mundane. I spent all day yesterday at the Department of Motor Vehicles with that family, helping get their papers in order. And as a white guy with local privilege and fluent local English, I was able to navigate that system in a way that helped them get documentation. The grumpy old white lady at the DMV thinks I look like her son, while the terrified brown person with disorganized papers who doesn't speak her language looks like a threat. That's one little way I can help support them. They're terrified to go into stores right now, and they should be. ICE is stalking out Walmart, stalking schools, stalking gas stations. So get involved. Now, please. Build trust. Get to the point where people can turn to you. I know a lot of you would be happy to go to the DMV with folks, but if they don't know you well enough to trust you when their whole world turns upside down and they're terrified, it's completely meaningless. The line of who is considered legal in this country is being moved very quickly, and you and people you love will be on the other side of it soon. If you are an ethical person, they are coming for you. And allowing more at-risk people to be disappeared is watching your allies be kidnapped and thinking it has nothing to do with you. Join local grassroots organizations like PSL or unions or whatever ethical local group you can find. If you're white, join or start local rapid response teams. Stop talking about organizing and start acting with mutual aid locally. And I hope that the least we can do, the very least, is blow this fundraiser up. So please share, please distribute, please chip in a few bucks so that this family who's going through hell can have a little bit of stuff they don't have to worry about right now.
Okay, so I'm going to try and play this reply. Sorry that I'm not as technically savvy with doing stuff as most people are, but I'm going to try to play this reply, and hopefully the thing here will pick it up and play it. So this is my friend Andre, and he's going to discuss this reply. It's about a 9-minute reply.
That's a tough one. I don't know if I've ever discussed this with you before, but I feel that it really deserves a verbal message. I don't know if you've heard of this phenomenon, and there's actually a book out with this title, and it's something that Donald Galvin told me about, that his sister Lindsay, who was the caregiver for him and his brothers, actually read, and it's called Rural Rage. Now, Donald lived out in Colorado Springs, but you have all kinds of areas out there like Telluride, where, as his sister said, there's a lot of diversity, ranchers and farmers. That's kind of her humor. So, you obviously run into the fact that it's a pretty conservative area outside of the cities in Colorado, which it is. And what rural rage refers to is how a lot of support of police brutality, white supremacy, slash ICE, whatever name it chooses to have at that time, comes from a lot of people in the rural communities being anti-tax, because the tax dollars, at least in their eyes, goes to the cities. And the rural people get left in areas with potholes and abandoned houses, and they don't get a chance to get their equipment fixed, so they feel like society's deserted them. And they become vigilantes sometimes. And that's what leads into a lot of this in different rural areas. Now, when you come to Maine, Maine has got a very interesting problem. I grew up all my life, hearing about Rodney King, the LA riots that came after that, and a lot of these internal issues with Black and Latin people that take place on the news. And you always get the impression, even from my family, that that's a city problem. That's them over there. They, them, they. But, Mainers are nice people. It could never happen here. Except when I started to meet, especially a lot of gay people who are mostly from rural areas, whether they be in hiding or whatever, and you found out the rural rage existed here. And the rural rage was always focused on the other, which in a state like Maine, which is majority white, on anybody who isn't white. So therefore, you have a man like Trump came in, and MAGA, and all the racist people he's associated with, who stir up rural rage. And Maine is a perfect battleground for that. Now, Augusta downward toward Portland, Maine is very, very deeply in that area. Brunswick, too, college town, is very deep liberal / progressive / democratic socialist country. They're the ones who make the laws. And they're noticing this rural rage. That story that you sent me about that guy who was arrested and what happened to his family is terrible. But it's like with the Haitians in Lewiston. I'm sure you heard what happened to the Haitian immigrants and how they were harassed under LePage. And LePage kind of fostered a lot of that while he was governor here. A preview of things to come with Trump, such as it were. So, like I said, we're now having to realize that, yeah, we can make all the decisions we want in Washington or in the city areas, and that helps. But rural rage is becoming known as a big problem, especially in places like Colorado, like the South, like the Midwest, certain parts of Northern California, and New England. And the rural rage areas tend to have the biggest voting bloc in support of Trump and MAGA. And to be perfectly honest with you, they're the ones who are going to be afraid of what the the late singer-songwriter Curtis Mayfield referred to as the people darker than blue. His poetic idea about basically any non-white person, And even though if you're very superficial about how you look at things, you might say, well, Andre Grindle defaults off to white. Well, I'm not. Okay. Being biracial makes you that other thing. So, socially in Maine, I've known it all my life, that you always have, just socially speaking, not politically, you're under enormous scrutiny by people on that personal level if your skin is darker or if your hair is a certain way. As a matter of fact, sometimes you feel you're under surveillance. I've had to live with that. And I've had people, even sometimes my own family, say, "Oh, you're making too much out of it." Well, I'm not. My mother is biracial, but she's darker. My father is a white, English, Irish mutt. Therefore, I am of mixed heritage. What they call that other race. I've kind of landed on Latino myself. That's the best way to describe my background, because my non-white background is Afro-Latin. Okay, so I'm not a Spanish speaker. I barely know French, any language but English. But tell you, I do relate to that story very much, and I have done my absolute best to understand rural rage and how it affects voting blocks and how deeply destructive it is. But there's good news. As bad as it is that people are disappearing, especially from rural communities, as bad as it was with the, I'm sorry, I got that wrong. I said Haitian. I meant Somalian people down in Lewiston, who literally are darker than blue. Somalian people are the only culture in the world that, one of the few cultures in the world, that you could actually say actually almost had literal black skin, really dark. Even in Africa, a unique culture. Very scary to the locals. Some of them started to disappear too. Luckily, that situation was resolved. And this situation should be resolved too. The state of Maine is having more non-white people who are darker than blue, as Mr. Mayfield said, coming into the state. And it's very important that we address the fact that there is a different way that people look at people like me. Even my mother, who's had her issues with her own cultural heritage over the years, has often said to me when I was a young child, a teenager, before I even met you, that, Andre, you may have lighter skin, but just remember, people are not going to see you as a white person. So yeah, I could see it, even before that I felt like I was under surveillance. Like, why is your hair that way? Why is your skin that way? Couldn't it be a little different? Couldn't it be more like us? What's wrong with you? But it was never an overt thing. Well, now that Trump is around, it is. It's always been there. It's not new. The question is, what can we do? And I think we can do a lot. We did a lot with the Somalians in the Page era, I think a lot can be done, and I support good things that can be done. I think it should be handled bilaterally and unilaterally, though. I don't think it should be put the hammer down. I think we need to deal with education and understanding all the things that the South are trying to destroy. The don't speak Spanish, don't say gay laws. We need to reinforce that in Maine. Maine's always looking to itself in terms of social progressivism. Fine in Augusta, fine in Portland, fine in Brunswick, fine in the southern part of the state. Come up north. Come up north and bring the people up to, bring up to the 21st century. Bring them up to the idea of diversification in a way that will appeal to older people. Don't try to talk to them as if they're young people on YouTube. That won't alienate people. Try to use language that would be understandable by the Maine potato farmer who might be over 50 or 60. Those are bilateral and multilateral things that can be done. And I don't have the wherewithal to do that, and neither do you. But that's a good idea, to be able to diversify in a way that will make sense to people who live in Maine who haven't known a lot of people who weren't white. That's the problem. Because they will see people on the news getting arrested. They will tend to favor the police. Because that's the other, like the concentric circles we talked about. How unfamiliar the circles get as they go apart from each other. And things are contracting, things are getting closer. And Maine needs to address that. Rural Maine needs to address that. The government needs to address that problem. And that's how I think that we can prevent things like that from happening in the future. What that man was talking about in that video.
Yeah, so as I said, he had a much better perspective of this, what happened here, than I could have. And they are. Let me see. I'm going to say what the link is here to, if you want to donate. Okay, let me first before you make that choice. Their goal was to raise $15,000, which they have. What they've raised so far is $146,900. Okay, but if you still want to donate, okay, here I want to read that, and then what I'll do is I'll type it in the description in the video, and just in case you don't get it. But it's https://donorbox.org/support-family-in-waldo-county. But I'll write it out in the description there below. So yeah, but yes, they did meet the goal. Somehow I feel like $15,000 is probably they'll probably burn through that pretty quick, in this situation here that's happened. So maybe the 146,000 that they've gained so far might be more helpful, I guess. But who knows how long a fight like that's going to last and how much money they'd need. I mean, Jesus Christ. I mean, but it's sad that a person is just picked up and detained, and like he said, almost in secret. Remember I was telling you about that son of a bitch there that I was watching on the YouTube on the TV. The guy was fucking wearing a Captain America t-shirt. Didn't look like a goddamn ICE agent or anything like that. No, he just walking around looking like every other idiot that's out there on the street. He goes up there and he fucking grabs people. What the hell is that? No fucking warrant, no nothing. It's like the fucking secret police or something. Like not Hitler had. The brown shirts. It's like that. It's scary when you think about it that all this time we've had ICE agents in this country, but now we see what's happening here, that they're being used in this sort of black ops sort of way here, and it just doesn't look right. It doesn't reflect the way we should deal with things in this country. I mean, look at all the steps we take through just to get a criminal off the street and in prison. They got more fucking due process than any of these fucking people that ICE is picking up here. Okay? They're denied due process. That's not right. I'm sorry. People are saying, well, if you're not a citizen, you shouldn't have. That's not the point, whether you're a citizen or not. The way we conduct our business in this country is the point. Okay? Whether or not a person is an actual citizen of this country, how we deal with law and order in America relies on due process. We have to go by the fucking book. We just, because, you're not a citizen, we can treat you like dirt. We can hang you by the highest tree without a fucking trial. No, that's not the way we work here. You might get that from places like Saudi Arabia or Russia, but that's not us. That shouldn't be us. Okay? I mean, they're taking these people and they send them to El Salvador. What, we have a treaty with El Salvador here to take our prisoners? If that's the case, why haven't we sent all our biggest murderers down there? Okay? No, we're picking only the people that we deem to be un-American or, illegal citizens to go into the worst fucking parts of the world, as prisoners of these other countries. You tell me, who do you think deserves to be down in El Salvador? A person that's an illegal in this country, or a fucking serial killer? You tell me, who do you think deserves to be in El Salvador at one of their goddamn concentration camps? Okay? That's just my way of looking at it. But what we're doing here is no different than what fucking Adolf Hitler and the Nazi Party was doing to get rid of the Jewish people in his country. Just anyone that was Jewish. I mean, he had them wear remember they had to put a fucking star just to get it straight in their fucking head who was and who wasn't, Christ. It was like branding cattle. And Christ, they had so many to round up, they actually got some Jewish people to help them do it. Who would think that, But the thing of it is that what's going on here is ridiculous. And like I said before, the things that the government does is not a scalpel. You're going to pick up, people who shouldn't be picked up and sent to, El Salvador. And when the government says we're going to do this and that, you can guarantee there's going to be slip-ups, there's going to be oversteps, whatever you want to call it. And if there's no oversight over anything that's going on, then a lot of shit's going to happen that we're never going to know about. Okay? I doubt many people, even in Maine, even know about this fucking story, because I didn't see it on any of the fucking news outlets, on the local news. It was never said. Okay? But this story has to be put around because it's not just a Maine story. This is a national story because this could happen in any other state in the country. All right? And it probably already has. I'm sure it already has. Okay? So we need to keep these stories out there. We need to collect them all just to let people know that, hey, Trump said he was just going to do this, but guess what? He's picked up, veterans. He's picked up people who have no criminal record, but because they look brown and they don't fit, or they got a tattoo, they call them gang members. Automatically, you're getting the hell out of the country. That ain't good. That's not the way you do things when you're talking about protecting the borders. Okay, you don't just fucking drive people out, because they look different. All right, that's wrong. And Andre is right in that response that that's been a problem in this country, but not so big in the forefront because, until now, we didn't have Trump before, but now that we do, Trump is making it okay. And so everybody else feels it's okay to overstep themselves, okay, to cross the line, if you, as it were. Okay, they're all feeling that it's okay to do these things. And the more that it goes and nobody reports this stuff, okay, the more they feel like, oh, well, they're not even going to tell anybody we just did this. So let's keep going. They're going to keep pushing the envelope until they cross too many lines. And I'm saying it's up to us that do find these stories to put it out there, make it go viral, get it out there so people know this happened. Okay, and I'm glad that, yes, the idea that they had a goal set for $15,000 and they've already surpassed that shows that a lot of people have seen this already. Okay, that's good. I'm glad that it's got there because we're doing the job the media is not doing. All right, so yes, I shared this because I said, I saw that this morning. I was like, Christ, I didn't even know this happened. I look at the local news, Channel 5 News, no story mentioned there about anybody that was, but yet, okay. And so, yeah, and, it's sad that, I guess it would be easy in this state for somebody to go out into them areas in Maine, like out in western Maine, where it's all trees and the towns are small and the populations are small, to go out there and harass people and get away with it because it's like almost done in secret. There is no media out there. Okay? All you have is like this fellow that made this video on TikTok. Okay? That was the only way that ever got out. If he hadn't have done that, I doubt anybody would have even heard anything about that because nobody would have said anything, And yes, there is fear in some corners of Maine, about, saying anything. But that fear is from those who they themselves could be picked up and deported. And they don't want to end up in El Salvador, and I can't say I blame them. So it's up to the rest of us to do the talking for them because, hey, if we don't and they don't, what's going to happen? Nothing. It's just going to continue to escalate. Now, I don't know. I mean, if Jada Mills even heard about that, I don't even know what authority the governor would have on this matter. I really don't think there'd be much that she could do because she's just the governor. So I don't know. But I would think that, there would have to be some accountability for the people that they pick up, at least to say, well, we have this person and, send the name to some government thing just to say we got this person and that the governor can see it. So, but because they're not allowing anybody to have any due process, I mean, I guess they would just circumvent that, wouldn't they? You know, it's very scary that anybody, you know, even if you are a citizen and you're white, okay, and you might say something that somebody didn't like, Jesus, it'd turn you in maybe, you know, the, Uncle Tom's out there, you know, and stuff, and God help you if they put a reward. If you find somebody that you know is illegal and you report them, we'll give you a $10,000 reward. Jesus Christ, you realize what would happen in this fucking country if they did that? Oh, Christ. So I'm saying it's important that these stories come out now, because the credibility of ICE is not looking too good right here. It isn't. Up to this point, it doesn't look too good. From the very beginning, they started this thing with a bludgeon, and they're not doing a very good job with it. Okay? They're not doing a good job. People think that all these people that were picked up and brought to El Salvador were all criminals, but that ain't true. They're not being told that some of them hadn't even had a police record. None of them. Or, you know, that those... some of them did, okay? There were some criminals. I'm not saying they were all innocent, but some didn't, okay? And they picked them up because they might have had a tattoo that looked like a gang tattoo, okay? Or they couldn't speak English, or their skin, you know what I'm saying? They were just rounding people up, okay? And remember, I told you, there was a goal that Trump had set, okay, that he wanted to see out of this country, and that meant... you know, they were going to have to find people all the way up to that number that he had laid out. Even though there wasn't as many illegals as he was saying there were in this country, they still have to meet that, I think it was 20 million, I guess it was, because there was only, they say it was only like 11 million illegals in here, but Trump was quoting 20 million. So they're going to have to find lots of people to meet that fucking number just so Trump feels like he's done his job. All right, so that means a lot of innocent people are going to get the shaft in this country. Can El Salvador take 20 million people and they're fucking, you know, Christ, they're probably going to end up killing a lot of those people because they won't have room to have them all. But it's not the best thing. And those people who left here, those 200 and some odd people who left here in the plains to El Salvador, they're living the American nightmare. Okay, that's what they're living. They're living the American nightmare that all of us, we're all responsible for that. All of us, those of us, you know, who did not vote, those of us who voted for Trump, all of those people that, you know, we didn't take it serious enough. We're all to blame for those people down there right now that some of them are probably have already been killed. Some of them are probably being worked to death. Okay, they're living the American nightmare. So, yeah, anyway, that's it for today. And I hope everybody has a great rest of the week. So subscribe, comment, and share. And keep your ears open for health issues. I think that the bird flu thing is still out there. Measles is still out there. You know, people, you need to get involved with your community. You need to stay together, you know, and stand up for each other, because really that's all we're going to have left here as we try to get through this year and next year and the next 2 years after that. So we really need to come together. So I'll talk to you guys later, so take care, everybody.